Hi everyone, and welcome to this sharing session about how to cook a digital culture. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Simon Mussard. I have an academic background in engineering and computer science, and I have spent almost 10 years of my life as a strategy consultant helping major companies in their technology strategy as well as through their digital transformation journey. Since April 2019, I joined Thales in Singapore as the head of our digital factory. What I want to share with you today is a 4-year-long journey, 4-year-long experience of how to build and sustain a digital culture. Of course, as a French, I cannot talk about culture without talking about cuisine. And you will see throughout this presentation how digital culture relates to cooking. So let's not wait any longer and let's start cooking. The first question we need to answer to is, what is a company culture? If you listen to TED Talks or keynotes, if you read about the digital world and how digital companies get a competitive edge, you have heard about culture. Like you, I have watched Reed Hastings, Netflix CEO, share about what is so special about their culture that allows Netflix to perform so well on the market. Like you, I have read articles and books from McKinsey, from the Harvard Business Review, explaining that digital success requires a digital culture. A great culture is what makes your company succeed. It is what attracts the greatest and the best talents and allows them to reveal all their potential. A great culture is what you need to innovate at scale and at pace to transform good ideas into true gold nuggets. To the contrary, a company culture that is inadequate will prevent you from performing. And a toxic company culture is what makes good talents leave. But what is culture? How can we describe the culture of a company? Let's start with this definition. Enterprise culture is the set of unconscious automatic reflexes of the people in an organization. Culture is defined by the way people collaborate, decide, share the work, communicate information or ideas without even thinking about it. Your company culture will define whether you should take initiatives, take risks, take ownership of your own actions, or trust the process. Your company culture defines how you address your boss, your peers. It is complex to define very precisely and formally the culture of an organization and the ways to influence it. But we generally can feel a culture. Like we can feel whether a dish is delicious or not to our taste. Hence the cooking question. What recipe should we follow to cook the best culture for an organization? At Thales Digital Factory, we had a culture question. And today I will share with you the recipe we followed. Let me start first by introducing what is Thales. Thales is a 81,000 employees group, okay, that is originally French, but that is now spread in 68 countries. We invest every year more than 1 billion euros of self-funded R&D, which doesn't count all the research and development that is funded by our customers or our partners. And we have our total revenues of 17 billions every year. We are building the future we can all trust. What does this mean? We are working on many different businesses and many different areas, market areas. First, we work on aerospace. This is probably where you have heard about Thales. We provide avionics equipment. We also provide in-flight entertainment systems, and more than 1 million passengers use our in-flight entertainment systems every day. We also provide air traffic control and air traffic management systems. And today, 2 out of 3 airplanes in the world take off or land using Thales equipment. And guess what? This is just for the aerospace business. We are also in the space business. We build satellites, communication satellites, observation satellites, as well as a ground station. We are also a provider of systems in the transport business. We are providing signaling systems for rails, for metros, for main lines, as well as security and communication system, but also revenue collection system. We are also in the defense and security business. We build sonars, radars, radio equipment for the army forces of the whole world, and we are also securing the key infrastructures and sites like the airport, for example. And finally, we are also a big player in the digital identity and security business, providing security and cybersecurity solutions for 9 out of 10 of the biggest tech giants. This is Thales, a big company that is developing very complex systems in the whole world. And we are from the bottom of the oceans to the depth of space and cyberspace. You might think that Thales has innovation at the core. Yet, 4 years ago, Thales has launched a digital transformation program that was aiming at 3 things. First, how can we develop platform business models, new business models that are more performant and efficient in the digital world? Second, how can we increase our pace of innovation, our speed of innovation? How can we innovate faster and bring faster new solutions, new value propositions to the market? And the third one, how can we win the war of digital talents? This is the objective of the digital transformation of Thales at a global scale. To accelerate this digital transformation, Thales made the choice to launch the Digital Factory. What is Thales Digital Factory? We opened our first office in July 17 in Paris, and then another office in Canada, in Montreal, in April 2018, and the third one in Singapore, November 2018. Our objective as Thales Digital Factory is to accelerate digital transformation of Thales and our customers. We focus on 2 things. We help our business lines in all their market verticals to build new digital offers, and we also help them to embrace new digital ways of working. And those 2 different transformations come together. We cannot build different offers, different products, if we don't work differently. So this is where we are playing at Thales Digital Factory. Let me give you maybe a more precise example and our core activity, what we are doing. This is the innovation process, the key steps. I'm sure you're already very familiar with all these steps. You start with an idea that comes either in a workshop or within someone's individual brain that then turns into a concept. What clearly are we providing? What is the service that we are providing? Who are our customers? How can we operate, design, build this solution? And then from this concept, we want to derive a product that we can sell. Usually, this step from the concept to product is the hardest step in the innovation program. This is where most of the ideas die because you are missing the right momentum. You had to convince too many people within the organization. You had too many budget hurdles, budget constraints. You are not able to bring the right team at the right moment or to bring the right technology at the right time. So this is where we are focusing our efforts. We are helping our businesses to reach this step between concept and product through an iterative approach that we call the MVP approach, minimum viable product. Let me give you an example. We were working with our UK team on a drone idea. Hey, let's do something about the drone business. How can we provide better experience to all the drone operators, which is a growing market in which Thales wants to play? So our colleagues define more precisely their idea of their new product, of their new service that is called Horizon. How can we help those drone operators grow their operations faster by providing to them a fully digital experience, helping them to organize, plan, and manage all their operations? This is the idea of Horizon. Our colleagues came to Digital Factory with this idea, and together, through this MVP iterative process, we have developed this new platform that is now on the market, that is called Horizon.io, that is providing to drone operators a solution to plan their flights, to get their authorizations, to manage their insurance, their pilots, their checklist, their pre-flight checklist, post-flight checklist, and make sure that everything is running fine. So thanks to the Digital Factory, we were able to help this team to go from a concept to a first version of a working product. Let's look at what's inside the Digital Factory. The first thing is people. We have teams, product teams. You know, get the big number, no more people than what 2 big pizzas can feed. Okay, so we have small teams of about 7 to 8 persons with all the different skills that we need to build and operate our digital products. It ranges from the developers, the tech leads, to the UX UI designers, as well as the product owner who comes with the business understanding and business knowledge and who is able to define the value proposition of our solution. And we have also cloud-related profiles like the DevOps engineer, but also the Scrum Master, who is here to set the pace of the team and make sure that we are progressing and we are improving our practices. Our teams are using 3 key digital practices. We are working in Agile, pure Agile, almost by the book Agile, if I may. We are using DevSecOps technologies, tools, and practices, and we are using cloud. All these practices, combined with our team structure, help us to reach shorter time to market, to be able to release the first version of a working product in a few months, I would say, instead of years in the traditional life cycle. So we started from scratch and we wanted to build this new team of the digital factory, and we had this question. What culture do we want for Thales Digital Factory? What is a working culture for this innovation team to perform in the digital era? So we started by getting inspired. We've read books, many books. You might know the Lean Startup by Eric Ries. You might know, of course, Start With Why from Simon Sinek. Also, books more working on the organization models like Reinventing Organizations from Frederic Laloux. We also got inspired from other digital companies like Spotify or Steam, whose models are pretty famous. And we also got inspired by the Agile Manifesto. So bringing all this inspiration together and bringing also the core team together, we started drafting what we want our own culture to look like. So this is what we came to. So we used the Agile Manifesto framework. I'm sure you know what it is. You know, working solution is better than exhaustive documentation. Okay, you want something better. Some values are better than other ones. So we started with this one. We believe that empowerment is better than control. It doesn't mean that control is useless. It means that whenever we have the choice and whenever we can make a choice as a manager, we prefer to favor empowerment rather than control. Because empowerment of our teams is what allows us first to go fast, because we don't have to put middle managers everywhere in the process, but also to grow the talents of our team and to reach more autonomy, more efficiency, and more performance. We also believe that we prefer data over opinions. Opinions matter. Opinions of our experts matters. But whenever we have data, or whenever we can get data, we prefer to base our decisions on data rather than opinions. Third one, we believe that test and learn is more efficient than planning. Because we are using Agile, because we are using these DevSecOps technologies that allows us to really quickly deploy new versions, deploy new solutions in production quickly, we are able to test many different approaches and to learn from all those approaches. And we believe that in a fast-moving world, this is much more efficient than planning everything up front. We also believe that collaboration is more efficient than protection. You know, Thales, coming from a defense background, protection is very something which is in our core. But sometimes, and especially when you are in the innovation process, collaboration brings better results than protection. The fifth one is users over customer. This one is a bit of a provocation. Of course, we care about customers. Of course, we listen to what our customers say. But whenever we have the opportunity to listen to what the final users of our systems need and want, this is data we want to bring to our customers to collectively take better decisions. And the last one, we believe that failure is better than not trying. Because we are innovating fast, because we are constantly learning and throughout our tests, we are able to fail fast, to fail cheap, and at the end we have learned, so it was better than not trying anything. So this is our digital culture manifesto. This is what the culture we wanted to deploy for our digital factory. This is it. This is it. Thank you. Of course, it's not it. Okay, this is just the beginning, as you can imagine. Here, the real questions begins. This is just a series of words on a poster, okay? That is stick, of course, on the wall everywhere in the digital factory, but the real question begins, which is how to turn this poster into our real secret sauce, how to make these words into our real culture. And this is where the cooking begins. So let's cook. What are the ingredients we want to bring together to cook this new digital culture? The first one, and you know, start with why. start with the vision of why we are here and what we want to do. Okay, so in the Thales Digital Factory, the vision is we are here to accelerate the digital transformation of Thales and of our customers. Every day we have to take a decision, every day we have to change, every day we have to adapt, every day we have to recruit. We have this question in mind. Which solution will accelerate most the digital transformation of Thales and our customers? This is the best compass for us as managers, as leaders, but it's also a good compass for our teams, for our people, to make better informed decisions and to make sure that we are all aligned towards the same direction, accelerating our digital transformation. The second ingredient we brought to our digital culture was the people. When we built Thales Digital Factory, we had a blank page. We had no one. We were creating from scratch this new organization. So we wondered which people, who should we bring to this new team to make this digital culture a reality. We made a strong choice at that time, which was to bring more people from the outside of Thales organization than from the inside. We wanted to avoid a replication of Thales' existing culture, which was not necessarily fully adapted to what we wanted to do with this digital factory. So we brought more people coming from the outside, coming from the either digital world or from other companies. And we had this key question about hiring. Who should we bring? How to identify the best persons. And so we have followed this framework that is coming from Lencioni's book, The Ideal Team Player. And we have three key ingredients we are looking at, three key factors. We want people who are hungry. Hungry, why? Not only because of the cooking, but because a hungry person always strives for improvement, always strives for perfection. He's always willing to learn new things, he's always willing to improve his own processes, his own tools, his own products. We also want humble people, people who are able to understand what other people are saying, to listen to other person, and also to be aware of their own skills as well as their own weaknesses, to be able to mix perfectly with the rest of the team. And the third one is aware. We want people who are emotionally aware, emotionally connected with their peers and with the world. We want people who listen to what is happening on the market as well as within their team. It's important when you are building a new team to have ideal team players. And really the core of organizations are those teams, those squads. And we want those squads to be performing perfectly. For those squads to perform perfectly, we need ideal team players. And this is how we are identifying those ideal team players. We made one strong choice regarding our recruitment process is that we prefer to have those ideal team players' characteristics rather than technical skills and proficiency. It is more important for us to bring people that will be performing well in this organization as a team rather than that being single heroes, technology heroes that will be able to solve all the problems by themselves, but that will at the end bring more problems within the organization. So when we design our recruitment process, we put the cultural fit interview as a first step. And any person who doesn't go through this cultural fit doesn't go to the second step. Through this design, we were making sure that we will not recruit someone who is not fitting totally with the culture, but who brings the good technology skills. And so we will not be tempted to dynamite our own culture and our own organization dynamics. The third ingredient is the organization, the structure of your teams. And here we had a few ingredients. The first one is our organization principles. We have what we call the flat hierarchy. We don't have hierarchical levels in our teams. We only have the head of engineering, and then we have all our engineers at the same level. All these engineers are spread through their teams. There is no manager in the team. We have teams organized in 6 to 8 persons, okay, the squads that were presenting just before. And we have also a cross-functional communities, okay, the self-organized communities that we call communities of practices that help to maintain a transversal communication, sharing of expertise, of experience, of knowledge throughout those squads. By designing a flat organization, we were making sure that we would follow our own rules of empowerment is better than control. Because our manager, our head of engineering, is managing more than 100 persons at the same time, he has no choice but to let them be empowered. Of course, at the start, we had to provide coaches, to bring coaches to the team to help those people, those teams step up, okay, and reach the right level of expertise, the right level of autonomy, as well as the right level of maturity. But coach is not a manager, is not a boss. Okay. This is how we built our organization, and how through our organization design, we were making sure that we were following and implementing our own digital culture. The fourth ingredient you want to look at is the process of your organization, the different processes. There are some processes that are here to support the culture directly. These are the most important processes within our team. The first one is, for example, the role definition. At the start of any new product, okay, our teams, through their scoping workshops, define the roles of everyone within this new product development. This is to make sure that the position, the role, the responsibility of everyone is clear and shared and voiced, okay, throughout the whole process of the development. The second one is the advice process. The key concept of this advice process is that anyone can solve any problem. The only condition is transparency. You need to share that you want to address a new problem. You need to consult the person that are impacted by this problem, as well as the experts of this domain. And then you need to transparently share your proposed solution and implement it. Anyone can do it, but it needs to be transparent. This process is also supporting the autonomy and the empowerment within our team. The third key process, for example, is the conflict resolution methods. We want autonomous teams, but we need to bring them the tools to be able to manage autonomously their own problems. Problems arise all the time in a team, and specifically in a team developing a product in a small, very, very short term. So we are bringing this tool, this conflict resolution method. This is a tool that allows our teams to be autonomous and to scale this autonomy throughout big teams without having managers that are swamped by day-to-day conflicts that should be resolved at the people level. It's also a good way to empower our teams to make sure that they are getting autonomous, that their maturity is raising, and that they are strengthening their team structure. These are not the only processes we needed to look at. I was sharing before the recruitment process that was fine-tuned to make sure that we were following and strengthening our own culture, but the appraisal process was also something we worked on. In Thales Digital Factory, there is no individual bonus. Of course, people have bonus, but it's not based on their individual performance. We have designed a team performance process where we evaluate through a transparent matrix the performance of each of our teams, of our small teams. And the bonus of the people are derived directly from the bonus of those teams, from the performance of those teams. By designing the appraisal process this way, we were making sure that all the teams, all the people within teams were working together through the same objective and avoiding to have conflicting individual objectives. So we designed this process to support our culture and our organization. The fifth ingredient that you need to look at, and it's not really an ingredient here, it's a cooking pot, the place in which you are designing, building, running your team. Let me show you a picture of what the Thales Digital Factory looked like in Paris. It is a free space to support the collaboration. Do you remember? Collaboration over protection. The teams are allowed to organize their own space with autonomy. We empower them to organize their own pace, empowerment over control. They are free to go and meet the users all the time, whenever they want, because we believe that users are more important than following the specs of the customers. Okay, so this location, the place in which you are always working, is the concrete, the materialization of your own culture. You need to build your space, of the rules defining your space, with your end goal in mind, because it reflects your own culture and your own organization. Let me show you another picture. This is a digital factory in Singapore. What do you see? It's the same. Why is it the same? Because we want to define and deploy the same culture here. So when we started, 7 months later, the digital factory in Singapore, we deployed the same principles regarding the space, regarding the organization, regarding the physical arrangement of the space around us, because we wanted the same culture to emerge, and we wanted to protect this new culture through our location, through our place. That's it. These are the 5 key ingredients you need to cook the digital culture. You need your vision. It needs to be there all the time. You need to bring the right people and to make sure that You are allowing the right people to shine and to grow within your organization. You need to design your hierarchical structure and your organization the right way to reflect your culture. And you need to make sure that all the processes are compatible and are supporting your own culture. And at the end, the location, the place in which you are building this team, this organization, this enterprise is also important. It is going to materialize your own culture and to make it concrete. Probably the most important thing here is that everything needs to make sense together. Like when you are cooking a dish, you need to make sure you have the right balance and you need to make sure that all the ingredients are combined properly. It is the same here. If you only touch one thing, if you only change your organization without changing your processes, or if you only bring new people inside an organization that doesn't change, you won't achieve the right objective. You need to touch everything. You need to make sure that your vision is compatible with your processes, your organization structure, and the people that you have inside. Everything needs to make sense together, like in the secret sauce that you are looking for. And maybe this is the last advice and the only magic recipe. You need to test and learn. You need to try. You need to get good feedback loops with your teams to guess, to test, to understand what works and what doesn't work well. And here, we are talking about cooking, so don't be afraid to taste. You need to feel your organization. You need to sit down with the team. You need to be here all the time to understand how things are going. This is how we design our culture at Thales Digital Factory. And I hope that this presentation will help you to fine-tune and to really build the culture that you are needing for your own digital organization. Thank you very much.